Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be looking at the new Draitron archetype that will be coming out in the deck building pack Genesis Impactors. They are a very cool ritual archetype that's based around OTKing. Most monsters are level 1 light machines with 2000 attack, 0 defense. And they only have one ritual monster, which is a level 12 light machine. It has 4k attack, 4k defense. All of the small monsters can summon out themselves from their hand or graveyard by tributing a Draitron or a ritual monster from your hand or field, and then they get different effects based on it. This one can summon another Drytron from your graveyard, and this one can search a ritual monster, which is super cool. I've splashed this in with the Invoked engine, mainly because all of them are just light monsters, so it's very easy to splash into it. We're up against, what are we? Up against Charmers. So, our Charmer opponent's going first, and he's kind of just going to set an Ari Fire pass. Okay, I mean, that's okay, I guess. Not the greatest thing for Charmers. Can this... I mean, this thing can't really do anything. He doesn't have anything with 1500 defense. Doesn't have any spellcasters in hand to do this. Pretty bad hand in terms of Charmers. But we have this card, Draitron Nova. What Draitron Nova does is just summons Drytron from your deck for free. The only drawback of this deck is they all lock you out of special summoning monsters that cannot be normal or summoned or set. But you can normal summon them, so of course the Invoked engine doesn't really special summon any other monsters that are not from the extra deck, so every single extra deck monster can be summoned after you use one of their effects. Oh, and we haven't talked about their boss monster. It can be targeted with monster effects, and during your opponent's turn you can banish any number of monsters whose total attack, I believe, it's something on the lines of it can just, all of them have like 2000 attack, so you can just banish 2 of them to send 2 cards your opponent controls to graveyard. I think you can only banish up to 2 of them. I'm not really sure, but yes, it's got decent protection. If it's ritual summon using monsters whose level is 2 or less, it can summon all special summon monsters. And the cool gimmick of this archetype is that they can ritual summon using a very interesting method. They ritual summon using their attack points instead of their levels, which is very interesting. So we're going to start off with the Foolish Burial. We're going to dump this card, Draitron Zeta. It has pretty much the same effect. You can tribute a ritual monster or a Draitron and summon him, and then his extra effect is to search a ritual spell. It doesn't have to be a Drytron ritual spell, it can just be anything. So we're going to get rid of the ritual monster in order to get it. And by the way, the ritual spell can also summon the ritual monster from the graveyard too. And it doesn't specifically have to be a ritual Drytron monster. It can also be any ritual monster, but you do have to tribute machine monsters. I don't think there are any other machine ritual archetypes that I can think of right now, but we're going to start off with the Draitron Nova, which will get us our Drytron Delta. We're going to activate the ritual spell, which will get rid of the Delta and this Alpha in your hand. Alpha basically just searches something. And Delta, when summoned, you can just reveal a ritual monster or spell in order to draw a card. And the reason why I'm not waiting to well, there isn't really much of a reason. By the way, this ritual spell can retrieve itself by making the by reducing the attack of a Drytron monster you control by 1000. I'm not sure if it's specifically has to be a Drytron monster. Yes, it does have to be a Drytron monster. We're going to be summoning the Delta, and we get to just draw 1. We draw the Cyber Emergency, which can search every single monster in this deck except Alistair. I believe it's getting reprinted in the set just because it does support Drytrons. And we're going to use Alpha. It can get rid of this extra Drytron, and we get to search the another one of the ritual. We have all 3. Then we can go ahead ritual summon we're gonna be ritual summoning stuff. We get rid of the Gamma in our hand, the Delta, and more stuff. And we're gonna keep the one in our hand, and we're gonna summon the one in our graveyard. So next we're gonna use the effect of Delta. He summoned himself and another Drytron. We go into a Unicorn. We discard one, shuffle that back into the deck, and attack for game. So this deck it's got some very resilient monsters, especially because they're literally Drytrons. I don't believe it's non-destruction removal, although it does target, so it does not go around some other cards. It can play around cards like Dingirsu that prevent destruction. They play around the Unchained monsters that get effects when they're destroyed. It's just a very resilient deck all around, and a very great complement to the Invoked engine. And we are up against the spiritual boys again, Charmer boys. And they're going to be going first again. They're going to just start off by activating Terraforming, get another one of the field spell, and they'll normal summon Fairy Tale Luna, which can basically search any Charmer. All the Charmers have 1850 attack, I believe. He's going to activate the Spiritual Art, and then he will reveal the Charmer in order to get one of the beasts. He can special summon the beast or can he not? Oh yeah, he controls Spellcaster, so he can just summon it. And then he's gonna summon this dude. This dude can summon himself from the deck, and when sent to the graveyard, you can search a Spiritual Earth Art or Possess Spell or Trap, which is super cool. And then he can also just revive a level 4 lower monster from your graveyard. So you're just gonna set one pass. The set card is Called by the Grave, so it does conflict with our Drytrons because it can fall to Called by the Grave. We're going to start by normal summoning Alistair. I just want to try and bait out any negates that he might have. We're going to go into an Almirage, into Gardna. It seems that he didn't really have any negates after all. We can go for a Purgatrio. I felt that Purgatrio might have been better because he does control a lot of cards, and I can OTK him pretty reliably. We're going to activate Invocation, which will just return that to our hand. We're going to activate the effect of Draitron Delta, which will tribute another Delta in order to summon him. And then we will reveal a Drytron spell or trap, and then we get to draw one. And the card we drew was Drytron Nova, which is super great. We're going to be summoning the Gamma because it can come in handy later. We're going to be attributing those two for the this dude right here. And then he kind of just surrenders. That Call by Grave, he should have used it earlier, maybe on my Alistair after I linked it off. Not that I wasn't going to do much. I have this Alistair which can boost my Purgatrio for 1k. I would have dealt him a massive amount of damage. Say he was going to take 2100 off this, 2350 I believe off that, or 2250 or something on those lines. But he would have taken 4k by that time, and I could have just attacked for game. So we'll go on to our next replay then. And this is our last replay against Blue Eyes, playing Mirror Force. I mean, Mirror Force isn't that bad of a card, just very slow. So we're going to be going first. We have a Where Art Thou, so it just helps us search a lot and the consistency of this deck. We're going to search an Alpha, and then we're going to activate Nova just so that we can get the level 1 on the field for Where Art Thou. We're going to be summoning Zeta, which is its spell card. You can just search spells. We're going to activate Where Art Thou, which will get a copy of Gamma, which is basically the monster reborn for the deck. We're going to activate Alpha. We will tribute that. We get the search. And then we'll activate the effect of Zeta. We'll tribute the ritual monster in order to summon him, and then we'll get the ritual spell. Now we're going to activate the effect of Gamma. Basically, it can pretty much just summon himself out if we're tributing a monster on the field, because he can just immediately summon that monster back out. Next, we'll normal summon the Alistair. We get the search for Invocation. We're going to activate Pot of Desires, which will let us draw 2. We're going to activate Delta. We will tribute that Gamma in order to summon it, and since we have the ritual spell in our hand, we can just reveal it and draw a card. We drew a Terraforming, which is good because we can search Draitron Fafnir, which is it's a field spell that lets us search any spell or trap from the deck. We search Draitron Nova. Next we can go ahead, link that off for an Almirage, for Secure Guard now into a ritual spell, Ritual Shokan, a big boy ritual man. We're going to use the effect of the ritual card. It can reduce the attack of a Draitron by 1000 until the end of my opponent's turn to get it back. It's in defense, so it doesn't really make too much of a difference. We're going to be going into a Mechaba. The reason why I banished the Secure Guard now specifically and not any of the other Drytrons in my graveyard, I mean, maybe I could have banished one of the Drytrons in my graveyard, but I just wanted them in my graveyard for the effect of Meteornus, which just is a Trident. We have a Invocation, which will shuffle it and add to your hand, and now we have a Monster Negate, Spell Negate, all that stuff. You're gonna activate Cosmic Cyclone on our Fafnir. I'm not really too worried about that, but he's just gonna set Merforce Pass. So next we're just gonna activate Delta. He can summon it, and then we reveal the ritual spell to draw one. We're gonna activate the effect of something else, Alpha, which will add. It seems that we banished all our copies of the ritual monster. Yes, we did. We're gonna summon Alistair. We'll get the search. We'll go into Nightmare Phoenix then, just to pop his back row, and he surrenders, and we have well more than enough to OTK. So this is kind of an OTK ritual deck, and it can get some very sticky monsters in tandem with the Invoked engine, especially because it can easily get out Mechaba with the amount of graveyard reliance we have, and the amount of light monsters we do have. You can also kind of splash this in with Cyber Dragons, because there are lots of Cyber Dragon cards that can help us search more light machines out, such as Cyber Repair Plant, I believe it was, which can search a light machine if you have a Cyber Dragon in your graveyard. There are just lots of crossovers between the two decks. Unfortunately, you cannot special summon cards that cannot be normal summoned or set, so that's kind of where it ends. But it can also work with cards engines like Eldritch. I mean, the Draitron engine might be a bit too big. It's pretty chunky, but we'll go onto the deck profile now. So here is the deck. We run 3 copies of Alistair, just for the Invoked engine. Just to search out Alistair, we run Magical Meltdown, the Terraforming for the Magical Meltdown, or the Fafnir depending on the game state, and 2 Invocation. That's just our little Invoked package. We run 3 copies of Alpha, which searches the monsters. 3 copies of Gamma, which is a monster reborn, just helps us swarm the field a bit. 3 copies, not 3, only 2 copies of Delta, which basically just reveals something to draw 1. The reason I run 2 copies of this, it's not that important to the deck. I mean, it can help us go into cards like Alistair, but it's not as important as these people right here. I mean, you can choose to run 3 of these, but sometimes just having too many of them can clog up the hand, as we might not have the cards to reveal for its cost, just to draw 1. And we run 3 copies of Zeta, which is just a spell search. 3 copies of DRA. It's the big boss monster of the deck. It's can be targeted by monster effects, although you're probably going to get targeted by spells or traps, to be honest. And you know, it's kind of like a Drytron where you can banish stuff from your graveyard and send cards your opponent controls to graveyard too. 2 copies of Desires for the extra consistency. 3 copies of Where Art Thou. Once again, for the consistency, you can pretty much always resolve this. 3 copies of Cyber Emergency. This deck is super consistent. It's got ton of search cards, tons of special summon cards, ton of ways to get those cards into play, get them online. It's just a very active deck, if you get what I mean. 1 copy of Terraforming, either for the Fafnir or the Meltdown, depending on the game state. If you're going first, then you'd usually want to just search the Meltdown, because this deck can't really put that great of a board going first, apart from Meteornus Pass. We next have 1 copy of Foolish Burial, very useful in getting your cards in the graveyard and just keeping them in play. In pure builds, I've seen people running cards like Scrap Recycler and Mathematician, and this is the main reason why they do it. They always just want to try and get their cards in the graveyard so that they are online. 3 copies of Draitron Nova. This is a compulsory 3 copies of, just summoning another monster from your deck. Kind of acts like a Foolish Burial, except you can also ritual summon them, and then you can just bring them back again, so you don't have to rely on them you using their own condition to summon them out, so you don't waste any resources. 2 copies of the ritual spell. The only reason why I run 2 is because you do run a flurry of ways to search it. You run Zeta and Fafnir, and technically terraforming is too, because you can just search out the Fafnir. And on top of that, in terms of Zeta, you have tons of ways to search that one out. It's just very consistent to get to the ritual spell. We run 3 copies of Nova and 3 copies of Fafnir because they're not as searchable as the ritual spell. 3 copies of Magical Meltdown for the Invoked engine, and finally 3 copies of Draitron Fafnir, just searching Draitron spells and traps. You can search anything. I believe they have a counter trap that negates summons, but I don't really like to run that. It's kind of failed me in testing. For Archetype, we run 3 copies of Mechaba. The only reason we run 3 is for the VFD. 1 copy of Aguides does come up sometimes, you know, getting those pops. On top of that, it can gain the attack of Banished Fusions, which is super great. 1 copy of Purgatrio, a super great card, just helps OTKing even more if this deck already doesn't have enough OTK potential. 1 copy of Raijin. Raijin is Raijin, it can just flip stuff face down. It doesn't come up too often, it comes up a lot less often, as we do not have any way to get wind monsters out. I might as well just cut this out, as it isn't that important, but it is a pretty nice card to have nonetheless. I've never summoned it so far in testing, but maybe if you put in instant fusion, you can just use it. 1 copy of Caliga. Caliga is kind of a skill drain-ish type thing. It basically just blocks out monster effects and stuff. And each player can only attack one once during the battle phase. So it's kind of like a skill drain. It's kind of different, but a super powerful card. 1 copy of VFD, Mechaba's level 9, so you can make VFD pretty reliably. 1 copy of Unicorn, 1 copy of Phoenix. Just the removal does help a lot in terms of OTKs too. 1 copy of Alistair, the Invoker of Madness, just helps us search our invocation so we can use it again for another fusion summon. Just helps a lot. 2 copies of Secure Gardna. Secure Gardna is really great, just not taking any effect damage. On top of that, for the rest of turn, it says you can't take any effect damage, and that includes taking damage from Where Art Thou, meaning you're safe from Where Art Thou's penalty of taking 2k damage. And finally, we run 2 copies of Almirage for the Alistair combo. We run 2 of these just because you can really easily, you sometimes need to make this twice. So that's the deck. I hope you enjoyed it. Do like and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Bye bye.